Hello, how's it going, everybody? Today we're jumping into Daniel, and we're gonna aim for Daniel 1 to 3. But I have a feeling we're not gonna get to 3. We'll see. Um, Let me fix this camera here real quick and then get the text up on screen. Also, let's make sure we're not there's no latency with the audio. Okay, there is none. So let me get this. Let me get the text up and all that stuff right now. Okay, there we go. Now, all right. So, Daniel chapter 1. As we do at the beginning of every single book, my Bible's a study Bible, and it has some it prefaces each book with some information that I like to read because it just gives us a bit more context. So let me go ahead and read a little bit of it. I'm not going to read all of it, but just a little bit. In 626 BC, Nabopolassar became king of Babylon and altered the course of ancient history. He quickly overthrew the domination of long-standing rival Assyria. And by the time of his death in 605 BC, he had eliminated the Assyrian Empire and swallowed it into what became known as the Neo-Babylonian or Chaldean Empire. Okay. Because I was wondering, they're using Babylon and Chaldea, like the Babylonian and Chaldean interchangeably. So that's why. This course of events had significant implications for Judah, the surviving remnant of the nation of Israel. Judah had been largely under Assyrian domination from about 670 BC, but now found itself serving a new master. In the same year as Nabopolassar's death, King Jehoiakim of Judah became a vassal of Nebuchadnezzar, the son of Nabopolassar. Nebuchadnezzar brought his father's empire to even greater heights, eventually deporting many Jews to Babylon. And we saw that extensively in Ezekiel and in Jeremiah and Isaiah. Daniel lived in the midst of all of these momentous events. What direct impact he had on the community of exiles cannot be known, but he was a force for good as far as the Babylonians were concerned. Daniel was a close confidant of Nebuchadnezzar throughout the Babylonian king's reign, 605 to 562 BC. Later, Daniel served with equal distinction Cyrus, the enlightened Persian ruler who conquered Babylon. One of the first policies Cyrus implemented after subduing Babylon was to allow the Jews to return to their homeland and rebuild their way of life. It is more than likely that Daniel had some influence on Cyrus's decision. The book of Daniel is a testimony to how God works out his purposes through his servants, even in the courts of pagan rulers. And then it goes into a little bit more about Daniel. I'm guessing the time when the book probably was written and the purpose of the book, but we can extrapolate all that information as we read through. I want to touch on this, that they have a little timeline over here. So in 612 BC, Nineveh falls to the Medes and Babylonians. In 605 BC, Nebuchadnezzar takes Daniel captive. In 603 BC, Daniel interprets the king's dream. In 586 BC, the Babylonians destroy Jerusalem. Remember, they took people in waves. It didn't just happen all at once. So that's why we have Nebuchadnezzar taking Daniel captive in 605 BC, and only the destruction of Jerusalem happens by Babylon in 586 BC. So In 580 BC, Daniel's 3 friends survive the fiery furnace. 550 BC, Belshazzar assumes the throne. 539 BC, Belshazzar's kingdom falls to Cyrus of Persia. And if we can get into chapter 3 today, we'll touch on that. With the statue, the dream, and all that. In 538 BC, the Jews are allowed to return to Jerusalem. In 537 BC, Daniel is thrown into the lion's den. Okay, so I didn't know that. So Daniel is thrown into the lion's den after the Jews were allowed to return to Jerusalem. Okay, so let's start up with Daniel chapter 1, and let me get the volume up. We can get started here. All right, let's hit play.
The Book of Daniel. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with some of the articles of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. And he brought the articles into the treasure house of his God. Then the king instructed Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, to bring some of the children of Israel, and some of the king's descendants, and some of the nobles, young men in whom there was no blemish, but good-looking, gifted in all wisdom, possessing knowledge and quick to understand, who had ability to serve in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the language and literature of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed for them a daily provision of the king's delicacies, and of the wine which he drank, and 3 years of training for them, so that at the end of that time they might serve before the king.
So they were pretty much grooming them, getting them ready, taking the best of the best, the elite, and getting them ready to serve the king. I want to read this here real quick. The language and literature of the Chaldeans. The language of most Mesopotamia was Akkadian, which was written in cuneiform script, usually on clay tablets. Over the centuries, the Babylonians and Assyrians produced a massive body of literature of all types. Though Aramaic had begun to replace Akkadian by 600 BC, the Babylonian scholars continued to study and even write literature in their classical tongue. For Daniel and his friends to be truly educated required that they be familiar with these literary traditions. The term Chaldeans was commonly applied to the Babylonians in general, and also to the guild of astrologers, diviners, and other practitioners of wisdom to which Daniel was being introduced.
So that at the end of that time they might serve before the king.
Yep.
Now from among those of the sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. To them the chief of the eunuchs gave names. He gave Daniel the name Belteshazzar, to Hananiah, Shadrach, to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego.
I also want to read this here. The name Daniel means God is my judge. Daniel's Babylonian name, Belteshazzar, means Lady protect the king, referring to the goddess Sarpanitu, wife of Marduk. That's interesting. Like he got a. How would you feel? Like, he's he clearly is strong in his beliefs, and then now he has a pagan name, so much so that the name itself is referring to a pagan goddess. That must have been tough, because the reason why he is here is because his people fell into idolatry and paganism, and then now they're pushing it on him by trying to change his identity by giving him this name. And I'm sure they're trying to teach them about their pagan ways and their practices and all that stuff, because I mean they were here to learn the ways of the land. So it must have been hard to deal with all that. The name Hananiah means the Lord is gracious. Hananiah's Babylonian name, Shadrach, means I am fearful of the God. Okay, see, that could go both ways. So Shadrach won. Lucked out in that one. The name Mishael means who is what is God. No, who is what God is. What? Who is what God is? That's interesting meaning. Mishael's Babylonian name, Meshach, means I am of little account. Okay, so I'm guessing that, it's like I am small, everything, God is bigger, that type of thing. The name Azariah means the Lord has helped me. Azariah's Babylonian name, Abednego, servant of the god Nebo. So, man, Daniel and Azariah really, and Abednego, yeah, Daniel and Azariah, they got the short end of the sticks with the names. It must have been hard. People having them referring to them by their Babylonian names, especially because that's the reason why they were brought here, because of idolatry and paganism. So to respond to someone calling you by a pagan name means you're accepting it, So that must have been hard for them.
Azariah, Abednego. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's delicacies.
Only
nor
Daniel?
With the wine
Not
which
what
he
about the
drank.
others?
Therefore, he requested of the chief of the eunuchs
That was all of his
that he
friends.
might not defile himself. Now God had brought Daniel into the favor and goodwill of the chief of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel,
I fear my lord the king, who has appointed your food and drink. For why should he see your faces looking worse than the young men who are your age? Then you would endanger my head before the king.
So Daniel...
I want to take it back a little bit real quick. Were these guys all friends before the captivity? Or did they just meet here? I always assumed that they were friends. Now from among those of the sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. To them the chief of the eunuchs gave names. And remember, they took a whole bunch of people. So honestly, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they weren't necessarily friends back home. They just met up over here.
Now God had brought Daniel into the favor and goodwill of the chief of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel,
I fear my lord the king, who has appointed your food and drink. For why should he see your faces looking worse than the young men who are your age? Then you would endanger my head before the king.
So Daniel said to the steward whom the chief of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah,
Please test your servants for 10 days, and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearance be examined before
Okay, so
you,
all of his
and the
friends
appearance
did
of the
eat
young men who
that
eat
way.
the portion of the king's delicacy.
Daniel is just the
and as you see fit,
spokesperson
so
amongst
deal with
them.
your servants.
So he consented with them in this matter, and tested them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, their features appeared better and fatter in flesh than all the young men who ate the portion of the king's delicacies. Thus the steward took away their portion of delicacies and the wine that they were to drink, and gave them vegetables. As for these 4 young men, God gave them knowledge and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Now at the end of the days, when the king had said that they should be brought in, the chief
God gave them knowledge and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. So I'm curious to know what the others got, right? Daniel had the understanding of vision and dreams, but what other knowledge and skills in literature and wisdom did the rest, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, get?
At the end of the days, when the king had said that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar.
What happened to those?
Then the king
those
interviewed
three?
them, and among them all, none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they served before the king, and in all matters of wisdom and understanding about which the king examined them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers who were
One
in
time
all
for each
his
day.
realm. Thus Daniel continued until the first year of King Cyrus. Now in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king.
I have had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to know the dream.
Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic.
O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will give the interpretation.
We saw that the Aramaic was slowly replacing the Akkadian.
My decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation,
Must have been seen like an
you
impossible
shall
task.
be
How can I
cut
interpret something I
in
don't know?
pieces, and your houses shall be made an ash heap. However, if you tell the dream
Man,
and
that's
its
a harsh punishment.
interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts, rewards, and great honor.
So not only will you be dead, you shall be cut into pieces, but your house shall be made an ash heap. So that's it. You got your family is done for.
Therefore, tell me the dream and its interpretation.
Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will give its interpretation.
I know for certain that you would gain time, because you see that my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me, there is only one decree for you. For you have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the time has changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can give me its interpretation.
There is not a man on earth who can tell the king's matter. Therefore no king, lord, or ruler has ever asked such things of any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean. It is a difficult thing that the king requests, and there is no other who can tell it to the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh.
For this reason the king was angry and very furious, and gave the command to destroy all the wise men of Babylon.
Uh-oh.
So the decree went out, and they began killing the wise men. And they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. Then, with counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered
I wonder how
Arioch,
many
the captain
wise
of the
men there
king's
were.
guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain.
Why is the decree from the king so urgent?
Then Arioch made the decision known to Daniel. So Daniel went in and asked the king to give him time, that he might tell the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they might see.
I like how they're not referring to themselves by... This is Daniel writing, right? So I like how he's referring to them by their actual names. He wouldn't obviously wouldn't have referred to them by their Babylonian names. But so that's just nice to see.
Mercies from the God of heaven concerning this secret, so that Daniel and his companions might not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. So Daniel blessed the God of heaven.
A night vision.
Blessed be the name of God forever and ever. For wisdom and might are his, and he changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you, O God of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we asked of you. For you have made known to us the king's demand.
Therefore Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus to him,
Do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Take me before the king, and I will tell the king the interpretation.
Then Arioch quickly brought Daniel before the king.
So Daniel is trying to save the wise men that
I have
survived
found
so
a man
far.
of the captives of Judah who will make known to the king the interpretation.
The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar,
Are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen, and its interpretation?
The secret which the king has demanded, the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, and the soothsayers cannot declare to the king. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he is made known to King Nebuchadnezzar.
That's good. That Daniel is not saying that, hey, I know the answer now. He's saying that God is revealing the answer to you. He didn't even say that God would reveal the answer to me and I'm revealing it to you. He's taking himself out of the equation. And he's saying God is revealing the answer to you. So Daniel is wise and he is humble.
What will be in the latter days? Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed were these. As for you, O king, thoughts came to your mind while on your bed about what would come to pass after this. And he who reveals secrets has made known to you what will be. But as for me, this secret has not been revealed to me because I have more wisdom than anyone living, but for our sakes who make known the interpretation to the king.
That's powerful right there. That's Daniel is saying that God is revealing this to you, King Nebuchadnezzar, the meaning of this dream. And while you were dreaming, that dream that you can't remember, that you're asking me to tell you what it is and to interpret, God gave you that dream as well. So it's just it's emphasizing the presence of God for Nebuchadnezzar. Like it's making it feel more real. Like, okay, what is Daniel talking about? Nebuchadnezzar probably thinking like, hey, what is this guy talking about? Saying that his God is telling me that this is the interpretation of the dream. But wait, Daniel's saying that you already had a conversation with that same God before. That dream that I'm about to interpret, that was from him. So by validating that transaction between Nebuchadnezzar and God, he is also validating what he's about to tell Nebuchadnezzar. And that validates, I mean, not that God needs any validation, but that validates God in Nebuchadnezzar's eyes, because, hey, I got a dream from this guy, this God. And then now this guy, Daniel, is coming here and telling me that he got the interpretation from this God. So it's not just one-sided anymore. Nebuchadnezzar is getting something from God. Daniel is getting something from God. So it just makes it feel more personal for Nebuchadnezzar. And that's probably why Nebuchadnezzar slowly, started to accept God also. Because he didn't feel it's not like Nebuchadnezzar is some pagan god and no connection, pagan king, no connection to God. He just got a vision from God. So I feel like that probably, helped Nebuchadnezzar a lot. The way Daniel said that right here. I hope I got that across fine.
More wisdom than anyone living, but for our sakes who make known the interpretation to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your heart. You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You watched while the stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together, and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is the dream. Now we will tell the interpretation of it before the king. You, O king, are a king of kings. For the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold.
Let me read this here real quick. The gold, silver, the bronze, the iron, the metals are listed in descending order of weight and value. The strength of the metals, however, increases from head to legs. That's interesting. In biblical imagery, a mountain is often a metaphor for a kingdom. The same is true in this case, as the later interpretation makes clear. All right, we'll get to that.
And has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. The great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure.
So, the kingdom shall be divided, may be a reference to the fourth kingdom, the Roman Empire. Differences about what is meant by the 10 toes and the kingdom that it filled the earth has resulted in a widely varying interpretations. Some believe that verse 41 to 45 point to future events that have not yet been fulfilled. In this scenario, the Roman Empire will one day be revived. will be ruled over by 10 rulers, will feud over internal problems, and will witness the return of Jesus Christ, and will be destroyed by Christ at the second coming. The kingdom shall never be destroyed is the kingdom of God. There are at least two views as to what forms this kingdom will take. Amillennialists suggest it is a spiritual kingdom introduced by Jesus Christ at his first coming. Premillennialists suggest that it is a literal kingdom to be established by Jesus Christ at the second coming, at which time he will destroy the kingdoms of this world. So my Bible also has a little graphic thing here. Let me see if I can pull up an image so you guys can look at that while I read this. So, Daniel's God-given ability to interpret visions and dreams served him well in his role as advisor to King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, a man noted for his mysterious and troubling dreams. The following brief comparison of a dream of Nebuchadnezzar and a dream and vision of Daniel reveals a common theme in the book of Daniel, the successive rise and fall of four kingdoms. So Nebuchadnezzar's dream, the image with the head of fine gold. And we're going to jump into this when we get into chapter 7. But this is like in Daniel's, it's comparing the two. In Daniel's dream, a beast like a lion with eagle's wings. Babylon would establish itself as a first world empire. The chest and arms of silver are like the beast, a beast like a bear with 3 ribs in its mouth. So that was Daniel's dream. And then Daniel's vision, a ram and 2 horns, one of which was higher than the other. So we're likening those two to this. Again, we're going to jump into that when we get to it in chapter 7 and 8. So Medo-Persia would defeat Babylon and establish itself as the second world empire. An image with a belly and thighs of bronze. And then in Daniel's dream, a beast like a leopard with 4 wings. And his vision, a male goat with a large horn later replaced by 4 horns and a little horn. Greece would defeat Medo-Persia and establish itself as the third world empire. An image with legs of iron and feet of iron and clay. And that is likened to, in Daniel's dream, a beast with iron teeth and 10 horns. Rome would defeat Greece and establish itself as the fourth world empire. Let's see what this picture's got to say. So this is talking about Rome over here, and then here's the divided kingdoms headed by revived Roman Empire, America. And whereas that, okay, we just read that. Let me look up a commentary for this. Daniel 2. You can spend a lot of time on this, actually. Nebuchadnezzar was clearly said to be the head of gold. After him would come 3 other kingdoms, each represented by the different materials Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream. After the succession of kingdoms, then came the final kingdom set up by God. Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom was likened unto gold because it was an absolute monarchy, God's ideal government. Nebuchadnezzar was not, however, God's ideal monarch. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. This prophetic dream was clearly fulfilled in history. 3 dominating empires came after Babylon: Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. The nature of these empires was accurately reflected by the nature of the image Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream. The empires succeeding Babylon were inferior to Nebuchadnezzar's head of gold in the sense of their centralization of absolute power. Nebuchadnezzar was an absolute monarch, and the succeeding empires were progressively less so. They were larger and lasted longer than Babylon, but none held as much centralized power as Nebuchadnezzar did. Babylon, the head of gold, was an absolute autocracy. Persia, a monarchical oligarchy with the nobles equal to the king in all but office, is represented by silver. Greece is set forth by brass, indicated the still lower value of it, aristocracy of mind and influence. Rome, a democratic imperialism with military dominion dependent upon the choice of army and citizenry, and administered in the spirit of martial law, is set forth by iron. The third kingdom of bronze was the one which shall rule over all the earth. Indeed, Alexander's Grecian Empire was the largest among those compared in the image. The Babylonian Empire stood for 66 years, the Medo-Persian Empire for 208 years, the Grecian Empire for 185 years, and the Roman Empire stood for more than 500 years. Liberal commentators do not believe that the fourth kingdom is Rome, but they say it is Greece. Why so? And that the second and third kingdoms are Media and Persia, respectively, instead of the Medo-Persian Empire as a whole. They interpret this way because they believe it was impossible for Daniel to predict the rise of these empires. Well, Daniel is not the one predicting, it's God. And God's not even predicting, he's just stating it as fact because that's what's going to happen, because he already knows. So, like liberal commentators do not believe that the fourth kingdom is Rome, but they say it is Greece. And the second and third kingdoms are Media and Persia. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the iron, they think the iron is Greece. And the second, the silver, is Media. And the bronze is Persia. But the Medes and the Persians ruled together, didn't they? Babylonian kings, years after the flood. So we had Medes and Persians ruling around at the same time as the Babylonian kings. Okay, but this stops at Nebuchadnezzar. We want to go after Nebuchadnezzar. The Medo-Persian Empire, Cyrus, the king of Persia, and Darius, the Mede, son of Ahasuerus, the Mede, rules the Babylonians, Chaldeans. In the first year of Cyrus, he allows Jews to return home and instructs the temple to be rebuilt in Jerusalem. But was there a time where it was just the Medes, and then was there a time where it was just the Persians? That's what I'm trying to look for. Before they had a joint, the Medo-Persian Empire. Is this it? Medes and then Persians? Medes. Let me just type in Medo-Persian Empire. Timeline. Fall of Babylon to Cyrus. Darius the Mede, right here. I'm trying to find if there was a dividing line between the two, the Medes and the Persians. Instead of it being like this, right? Babylon, then Medo-Persia, because I'm trying to find the reasoning why they would say Babylon, then Media, then Persia, then Greece. So you're kicking Rome out of that. Cyrus II, Cyrus the Great, overthrows the Median king and becomes ruler of Persia and Media. So that's 553. Cyrus captures Babylon and releases the Jews from captivity. So the Medes and the Persians already were joined. According to this, the Medes and the Persians were already joined as an empire prior to Cyrus capturing Babylon and releasing the Jews from captivity. So if I'm going by this, I don't see why it would be the Babylonians, the Medes, the Persians, and then Greece, instead of the Babylonians, the Medes and the Persians, Greece, and then Rome. Yeah, so based off of this, or where was that article? Based off of this, I'm not so sure about that. In the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. This described the fulfillment of this prophecy in the future. The stone cut without hands shattered a confederation of kings, represented by the feet of the image, and then God's kingdom will dominate the earth. Since Roman history provides no fulfillment of this federation of kings, which seems to number 10 because of the number of toes, and passages like Daniel 7 and Revelation 17, this prophecy must still be future. Since the fall of the Roman Empire, there has never been a world-dominating empire equal to Rome. Many have tried: the Huns, Islam, the so-called Holy Roman Empire, Napoleon, Hitler, Stalin, but none have succeeded. Each of these had amazing power and influence, but nothing compared to that of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, in some form or another, will be revived under the leadership of the final fallen dictator, the Antichrist. I think my Bible had something to say about that, about the hands. I thought it did. Yeah, without hands signifies supernatural activity. And these days, where is it? And the days. And in the days of these kings, is that it? And as much as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces, the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. So the stone, right? We said that could symbolize a kingdom, and to be cut without hands shows some divine, supernatural significance. So God's coming kingdom. We're already at 50 minutes. I think I'm gonna cut chapter 3 out and just keep it with 2, and we'll jump into chapter 3 tomorrow. I figured this is a lot in with this dream, right? In the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. This described the fulfillment of this prophecy in the future. The stone cut without hands. The stone cut without hands shatters a confederation of kings represented by the feet of the image, and then God's kingdom will dominate the earth. Since we read that. It broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, the gold. This described a single decisive event that shattered the image representing the glory of man's rule on earth. Since the church or the gospel have not, in a single decisive event, shattered the reign of human kingdoms, this event is still in the future. This isn't the gradual salvation of the world by God. Smashing is not salvation. Crushing is not conversion. Destroying is not delivering, nor is pulverizing the same as purification. The stone was cut without hands. This stone was cut without hands is the Messiah, not the church. Psalms, Isaiah, and Zechariah refer to Jesus as a stone. Therefore, the final superpower of the world is thought to be a revival of the Roman Empire, a continuation of this image. This will be the final world empire that the returning Jesus will conquer over. He will be as a sanctuary, but a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense to both the house of Israel, as a trap and a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. What were we talking about here? Oh, this is cool. For the Lord spoke thus to me with a strong hand and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of the people, saying, do not say a conspiracy concerning that all that this people call a conspiracy, nor be afraid of the threats or be troubled. The Lord of hosts, him you shall follow. Let him be your fear, and let him be your deed. He will be a sanctuary, but a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense. So that's talking about God the Father, not God the Son. So I wouldn't say it's referring to Jesus here, at least in this, referring to God. And I'm not sure about the rest. I'm going to put this in the description for you guys to check out. The kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. This final world empire will be according to the nature of clay mixed with iron. It will have more the image of true strength than the substance of strength. As a whole, the image accurately represented human power and empire. The image seems invincible, but it was actually unstable at its base. Therefore, one blow to the foundation could topple the whole thing. It's also significant to see that the image described devolution, not evolution. Instead of a man beginning in the dust and evolving into gold, this vision declares that man's dominion begins with gold and devalues into dust. Some 40 years from this, Daniel had a vision describing the same succession of empires. Daniel saw it from God's perspective, and Nebuchadnezzar saw it from man's perspective. Nebuchadnezzar saw these empires as an impressive image, and Daniel saw them as fierce beasts. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. Daniel didn't guess or analyze. Through him, God announced the future. The only reason that God can predict history is because he can control it. Let's keep going here.
Inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this.
Also, that image of it breaking into pieces and then the pieces shattering and destroying the rest, I wonder how that's going to play out.
The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure.
Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face, prostrate before Daniel, and commanded that they should present an offering and incense to him.
Truly, your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, since you could reveal this secret.
Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts, and he made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon.
Very similar to Joseph's story.
Also Daniel petitioned the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the
Helping out
province
his
of Babylon.
boys.
But Daniel sat in the gate of the king.
I just want to look at more these pictures. Yeah, we're going to stop at 2. This is it. We won't do 3 today. His feet part of iron and part of clay, partly strong and partly broken. They shall not cleave one to another. Was Rome a divided empire? This will take a lot of time and research. I probably might do a reaction video to somebody else's breakdown of this in a separate video. Extending from the legs are feet and toes of iron mixed with clay, a brittle and unstable mixture because it would not bond well. These represent the final phase of the Roman Empire, which will be made up of 10 kings, some strong and some weak. So this is something that's going to come about. Britain and the USA. Here's a cool picture because this is very similar to the, remember I was talking about that my Bible had that little diagram that was comparing the dreams and the visions of Daniel with this dream from Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, this actually looks nicer. It's got pictures and everything, but this is essentially what it was. I can put this in the description too. But yeah, this is I'll probably do a separate video to look into this even further because I mean, people do entire series of sermons on this one thing, right? So yeah, I don't want to take up too much time right now. We're already almost hitting an hour. So I'll stop right here. We'll jump into chapter 3 tomorrow, and I'll do a separate video on Nebuchadnezzar's dream and the statue, the symbolism behind it, and all that stuff. So we can look into that in a little bit more detail. So hope you guys enjoyed today. We just started we just started Daniel. Daniel's going to be good. Daniel's going to be really interesting. So hope you guys look forward to the rest of this book. Yeah, that's going to be it for today. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow for Daniel chapter 3. Take care. Bye-bye.